Welcome to Canada, a land where people live in igloos and ride polar bears to school. Today we're going to look at 3 different branches in the Canadian federal government and compare them. Okay, let's start with the legislative branch. The legislative branch includes the House of Commons, Senate, and Governor General. The Governor General is the Queen's representative in Canada. The Governor General has to pass a bill before it becomes a law. A bill is a proposed law. The House of Commons is a major law-making body in Canada's federal system. The member of the House of Commons debate, study, and vote on laws proposed for Canada is called bills. Members of Parliament or MPs are members of the House of Commons. Each MP represents the votes of one riding or district. When there's a federal election, voters can vote for a candidate in their riding or district. Most MPs belong to political parties. The parties with the most MPs usually forms the government. The other parties form the opposition. Most MPs belong to political parties. The party with the most MPs usually forms the government. The other parties form the opposition. Representation in the House of Commons by population. That is why there is fewer representation for the territories, because less people live there. All proceedings of the legislative branch are in Canada's 2 official languages, French and English. During question period, members of the opposition parties question the Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers in the House of Commons. The role of the opposition in the House of Commons is to start debates, act as a watchdog, and speak for different views and perspectives of Canadians.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to salute the Centre for Disease Control in Atlanta and the province of Quebec for putting in place emergency measures to deal with the possibility of an invasion of zombies. Now, I don't need to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that zombies don't recognize borders and that a zombie invasion in the United States could easily turn into a continent-wide pandemic if it's not contained. So on behalf of concerned Canadians everywhere, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Minister of Foreign Affairs, is he working with his American counterparts to develop an international zombie strategy so that a zombie invasion does not turn into a zombie apocalypse?
Speaker, I want to assure this member and all Canadians that I am dedicated to ensuring that this never happens. I want to say categorically to this member and through him to all Canadians that under the leadership of this Prime Minister, Canada will never become a safe haven for zombies, ever.
Each riding has a seat in the House of Commons, basically where the MP sits. If a political party wins a majority of the seats in the House of Commons, it always forms a government. If a political party wins most of the seats but not majority of the seats, it usually forms the government. But the majority party will have to get support or make an ally with another party, or 2 smaller parties will support each other. For example, the next election in 2015, many say there will be a 3-way race between PC, NDP, and Liberal. So if PC wins, but not majority, NDP and Liberal might support each other if this happened. Canada has had 13 different minority governments in the past. MPs will vote for the government proposals. The Commons chamber is where the MPs spend most of their time debating and voting on bills. The chamber is also where the MPs represent their constitution views and needs. For example, First Nations MP is a key responsibility to address the issues for the Aboriginal communities. MP's first responsibility is to the constitutions who elected the MP. The MP represents them by formulating policies and assisting them when service provided by the Government of Canada. An MP's second responsibility is the work of Parliament. Whether you're in the government or opposition, you have an important role to perform. Now let's talk about the second body, the Senate. The senators are not elected, but the Prime Minister appoints them. They can remain in the office until age 75. Prime Ministers tend to appoint people who support the Prime Minister's political party, since only few Senate seats become vacant at the time. However, the Senate includes people from a variety of political parties. Senators represent the interests and rights of Canadian regions, and especially Canadian minorities. Senators are appointed by division or a region. When Canada was made in 1897, the Constitution identified 3 regions, the Maritimes, Ontario, and Quebec. This was made so the 3 regions had an equal voice in the Senate, and to ensure the Quebec Francophones minority had an equal voice. As provinces and territories joined Canada, there were new regions were added to the division for appointing senators. The Senate can propose laws, but only consider bills passed first by the House of Commons. The Senate gives a second thought on to all legislation proposed for Canada. Because the Senate provides a voice for regions in Canada, it brings different perspectives to an issue and that concerns everyone. The Senate has the power to reject bills from the House of Commons, but rarely uses this power. The senator sees a role that represents all voices in Canada. Now let's talk about the executive branch. As you'll see, it will be related to the legislative branch. The executive branch includes the Prime Minister and his cabinet. The Prime Minister is the head of the Canada's government too. To become a Prime Minister, you must be elected as the leader of a political party. Then you must be elected as the member of Parliament, and the party you lead must win the most seats in the House of Commons. A cabinet includes the people with the responsibility for different governments departments, example, health, education, etc. The members of the cabinet belong to leading political parties in the House of Commons, and are members of Parliament or MPs or senators. The members of the cabinet are called the cabinet ministers. The prime minister decides what portfolio to include in the cabinet and chooses cabinet ministers. The cabinet proposes most of the ideas to become laws. The prime minister cabinet run the government on a day-to-day basis. For example, the minister of environment runs the department of environment, which has staff and equipment to, and among other things, keep track of air pollution. Judicial branch. This branch is more separate branch to the other two. All members of the judicial branch come from legal profession. The Supreme Court of Canada is the highest court in Canada. It has the final word on all legal questions in the country, including questions about rules and applying laws. Explains and applies all the laws in Canada, including the rights of Canadians. This means the judicial branch is the main responsibility for making sure the rights of Canadians are respected. The Supreme Court has 9 judges from 4 regions of Canada. For most of Canada's history, the PM and the Cabinet have appointed Supreme Court judges when positions become vacant. When judges retire, for example. In February 2006, Prime Minister Stephen Harper changed to the appointment process. The PM and the Cabinet now nominate judges, who then go through a review by a committee of MPs. In 2006, the Prime Minister still has the power to appoint judges of his choice. Now time for the big question of how the system works together. The legislative branch is where the MPs debate and vote on laws in the House of Commons. The legislative branch consists of the House of Commons, Senate, and Governor General, who represents the Queen. The Senate is the second thought on all laws and represents all groups of Canadians. The Senate is where the Queen sits when she visits. The executive branch is made up of the Prime Minister and his cabinet. The cabinet members are also MPs or senators and are appointed by the Prime Minister. This is where most of the laws are proposed and where government is run on a day-to-day basis. The last branch is the judicial branch. The judicial branch is made up of lawyers and people understanding of law. The branch is explained and made sure people's rights are protected under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So basically that is all 3 of the branches in Canada and how they work together.